The on and off fearful avoidant relationship cycle. This can be a really hard place to be in, whether you are the fearful avoidant, maybe going through this, or thinking about getting back together with an ex, or wondering what was going through your mind whenever you did this in the past, and maybe it wasn't the right decision. But in today's video, we're gonna break down the on and off relationship cycle, why this happens for fearful avoidance, what's actually going on beneath the surface, and how to navigate this in a way that promotes your healing, your growth, and your ability to really thrive when leaving a relationship, but also making sure that relationships don't have to break down that you do value. And by the way, this is not just something that happens in your romantic relationships. This can happen in friendships, family relationships as well. Let's dive into it today. And some of these things might really be surprising, but I'm going to share with you some really powerful tools that will help you heal. First and foremost, what you want to understand is that constant flip-flopping represents these core wounds or fears you have on either sides of the extremes of a relationship. On one hand, if you grew up really enmeshed, you may deeply fear losing yourself to a relationship or getting too close or being too connected. Enmeshment really means that you don't have emotional boundaries, and your sense of self and identity within the emotional domain is ambiguous. It's hard for you to really know where you end and somebody else begins. And so you can easily feel afraid of losing yourself in relationship dynamics on that one side, which can cause you to swing really avoidant. And on the flip side of that, you may also have this really deep need for connection, but fear abandonment, fear rejection, fear any kind of dynamic where somebody could hurt you or pull away. So on either side of this, because you fear abandonment, you may find yourself really clinging and really wanting to be all in and really close to somebody. But then the moment you fear rejection or feel rejected, or the moment you feel too enmeshed, you may fear being trapped or helpless and need to sort of push away. Because of this, you will see that you have this tendency to be hyper on in relationships and to hyper turn off in relationships. Either of these on or off cycles are actually a subconscious strategy for self-preservation, for self-protection. If you're trying to pull yourself away from somebody, it's usually because you're protecting yourself from being hurt by them, or you're protecting yourself from being swallowed whole by them. Or if you are really on and really trying to reconnect with somebody, it's usually because you're protecting against the fear of being abandoned or being alone or being unloved. And all of these different concepts and ideas usually represent the reflection of what your childhood relationship dynamics were like. In other words, for most fearful avoidant, aka disorganized attachment styles, there was a lot of mixed messages happening. Love and connection could be really, really good, or it could be really, really scary, and even at times dangerous in certain extreme situations. And so the need for connection and to really hold on tight is very, very strong, much stronger than your average secure attachment style. And the need to push away, shut down, ice out, stonewall, and self-protect is equally as strong. And so because of these two polarities, you will often experience this really deep flip-flopping. Now, there's more to it than this. There's a couple other really core concepts here to understand. So that's the first major one, right? These polar extremes of what you associate about love and about connection that causes you to be really on or really off, depending on what you're experiencing in the relationship. The next piece is that because you're so externally focused in these sorts of dynamics, you are probably really on and off with yourself. What do I mean by that? I mean that some days you really show up for yourself. Other days you may rip yourself to shreds a little bit, be really hard on yourself, ignore your feelings, disconnect from your needs and boundaries, put yourself down. And so as a result of that, you may find that the more disconnected you are from yourself, the less emotional bandwidth you have for others, and the more frustration you experience with others. On top of that, because you're a fearful avoidant, chances are you spend a lot of time trying to earn your worth in relationships, meaning you may be overly generous, overgive, pour in too much to relationships, only to eventually feel frustrated, burnt out, taken advantage of, which can cause you to really shut down or try to pull away to find your sense of self and inner domain again. What you want to see here is that the more disconnected you are from yourself, the less connection you have available to other people. And the less depth of connection you are available to receive. Because if I don't know myself deeply, if I'm disconnected from me, my feelings, my needs, I can't express them to you in a relationship. I can't be seen or heard or understood or have this healthy exchange of giving and receiving in the relationship. So, because we have these polarities of extremes, right? Being really afraid of being too close, but also being afraid of being too far, combined with this disconnection core wound, but shadow really more than anything else, because as a fearful avoidant, you may easily disconnect from yourself in favor of focusing on others. This lays the foundation to have these really strong on or off dynamics. I just wanted to pop in here and let you know we are doing a 7-day free trial to the All Access Membership Pass at PDS, which means you get access to literally everything inside of the school. And this includes the 4 live webinars I do with our students every single week. And on top of that, you get access to all of our different courses. We have over 55 different courses on relationships, communication, boundaries, emotional mastery, guilt and shame, learning your needs, so many different facets that are really important to master our lives and feel really good about our lives going forward. And last but not least, there's a daily community event. We have trained facilitators and coaches who are in there doing that work, showing up to support you on your journey every single day. Please join me on the other side. Come check it out. See if it's a fit for you. I'd love to see you there. Go ahead and sign up by clicking the link in the description box below. Now, arguably the most important part is that you also have a dynamic where you don't express your needs. And the longer you go on not expressing your needs in a relationship, often what you'll do is when you feel fed up enough for not having your needs be met, you don't realize that you can communicate in relationships, that you can express what your needs are to other people that you love. And so when you don't realize that you can actually just do this and open up and have discussions, it feels like when your needs are not met in a relationship, that it's an unsolvable problem. Where in reality, it's actually very solvable to communicate your needs, tell somebody you love that you have certain needs from them, and allow them to actually make room or space for these needs to be met in your life. But if you grew up in a household where you were conditioned to think that your needs won't get met by other people, because if you tried to express them as a child, they weren't reciprocated or they weren't seen, then we have this subconscious belief block that says, I can't express my needs. There's no point. It's like an unknown. And so it causes you as a fearful avoidant to have these polar extremes, then to feel like when you're disconnected from yourself, relationships are even more overwhelming. And then to feel like it's an unsolvable problem. It's not solvable. The problems you're seeing in front of you in a relationship dynamic. So often what happens is when you feel like you really love and you really care and you're really investing, and then you have these really strong pulls in either direction, really strong fears on either side, both on your anxious side and on your avoidance side. And then you combine those fears with also this feeling like these are not solvable problems and there's nothing you can do, and you're too disconnected from yourself to be able to actually move the needle in your communication. Well, no wonder there's this dynamic of makeup breakup happening, because you are the pendulum that's swinging over and over again from fear to fear, and it can make relationships exhausting and overwhelming. So what do we actually do about this? How can we actually change some of these different things? Well, there's one other thing I just want to tell you first before we get into that. And it's that when you're in this place, okay, and you've got the fears on either side, when you shut down and push somebody away, not only as a fearful avoidant is it often a strategy to self-protect, whether it's protection from being rejected or protection from being abandoned or from being engulfed and trapped or from being taken advantage of. Not only is it that, but sometimes also it's because you don't trust the love coming from somebody else. Because if you're not communicating your needs are often not being met, and it can cause you to feel like, I don't know if this person really cares about me because they're not meeting my needs. And as a result of that, you may find that sometimes your need to push somebody away isn't only coming from fear and from a deep trigger in the event of an argument or a fight, but also sometimes coming from a little bit of a test. Does this person really care? Will they fight for me? If I push them away, do they try anyways? Because fearful avoidants have a hard time pegging where their partner is actually at. And a lot of that is actually the result of a lot of low self-worth and self-doubt about both your own self, but also about relationship dynamics and their ability to persevere and your ability to trust in them and to trust that you can grow together with somebody. So what we have to do if we're wanting to work through these things is a couple core really important dynamics that will actually shift not just you as a fearful avoidant, but also shift your relationship to relationships in the workplace, with money, with your physical health and well-being, with romantic relationships, friendships, with literally all relationships in your life. And imagining that each area of your life is you sort of have a relationship too. The first thing is you have to dump out on paper what your fears are. What are you actually so afraid of? Are you afraid of being rejected, abandoned, being betrayed, having somebody trap you or create this sense of helplessness? And then what you have to do is you have to look at where those things are a mirror into how you treat yourself while in relationships to others. In other words, where do I abandon myself all the time in a relationship dynamic? Where do I reject myself? Where do I trap myself by not communicating my boundaries, by not sharing my needs? Where do I feel unloved or unseen because I'm not seeing myself? We have to see where we're doing these things to ourselves first, and we have to start trying to change that. Stop abandoning my feelings. Allow my feelings to be expressed and known. Stop betraying myself by actually communicating my boundaries to people in my life. Stop putting myself in a position where I feel trapped and helpless because I'm not letting people know what I need or feeling like I can foster boundaries in my relationship dynamics. So we have to see what those roots of those fears are first. Stop reigniting them in the relationship to ourselves by changing our behavior. We have to couple that by also challenging these ideas. Just because your relationships were trapping in childhood, or just because you felt abandoned in different times in your life, it doesn't mean that your past will always dictate your future. And we can't play that game with ourselves. We can't get into a position where we think, oh, because I went through this thing 5 years ago, that means all people are like this forever. Because when you do that, you hurt yourself, and we remove ourselves from the richness of life and life experiences. So we have to challenge some of these very stubborn ideas that can exist at a subconscious level, which is a normal thing coming out of trauma, right? When we have a past relationship trauma, we tend to project the likelihood of it recurring onto everything. But we have to challenge these concepts. We have to question these things. The next thing we have to do is we have to learn to maintain connection to ourselves. As a fearful avoidant, it's going to be really important that you learn to stay connected to your feelings, stay connected to your needs, stay connected to your boundaries. And that you check in with yourself on a daily basis, that you make time to actually just be present with yourself, to just see what's going on inside of you, what you're needing. And if there's some kind of daily habit that way, you being able to maintain connection to self will allow you to foster more emotional bandwidth and more connection with others. But more importantly, it will allow you to stay connected and attuned to what it is that you really need. And this brings me to this last piece here that's of the utmost importance, which is that you have to be able to communicate your needs to others. Part of the biggest reasons that you push somebody away are because you don't feel like your needs are being met. But if you're willing to be radically honest, it's often because you are not letting people know your needs. You're not communicating them openly, and you're not allowing yourself to see them through. Like if somebody forgets one day, sometimes fearful avoidants take it so personally. Instead of saying, hey, you forgot about this need XYZ, can you do me a favor and meet it? So it's really important that you learn to communicate your needs and see them through, because you give yourself the opportunity to see who's really willing and ready to show up without thinking, oh, if somebody's not mind reading, it means they don't care. A lot of times we often filter people out for the wrong reasons. And a lot of times, if you're willing to communicate your needs clearly, specifically, and honestly, and see them through, you truly get to vet. You truly get to see who's going to show up and who won't. And you get the opportunity to strengthen the right relationships by doing so. So these are some really important dynamics at root cause that cause these all or nothing sort of on and off relationships to happen, these make up, break up cycles. And when we can really connect to what's going on in terms of those fears, in terms of our shadow, and being able to maintain connection to ourselves, and also in terms of being able to really know our needs and share them and communicate them and stop reenacting those core wounds to ourselves, we can foster a healthy, secure relationship to self, which then will enable you to have secure relationships to others. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. And if you're enjoying this channel, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. And I can't wait to see you in future videos.